There's no real right or wrong way when you're creating classification levels for your information and asset classification program, but choosing to leverage ones that are more commonly used and understood by general users will help increase the success in the adoption of your information and asset classification policy. I've provided some of the most commonly used examples here, with the lower level sensitivity classifications to the left and increasing in sensitivity as you move right. The examples also show what is commonly used in the commercial sector, such as public, internal, and confidential, as well as what is commonly used in the government and military sectors, such as unclassified, secret, and top secret. Nothing stops a commercial or non-government organization from using the unclassified, secret, and top secret labels, but I wanted to provide some examples for both for reference. Now that you know more on what the common classification levels are, let's move on to an example of each to help cement the concepts further. Lots of examples exist for public or unclassified classifications, but here are some specific examples. Product brochures for a manufacturer that wants to raise awareness of a product they make. Publicly accessible web pages that contain only public or unclassified information, which should be the case since they are publicly accessible, otherwise they would be restricted on who could connect to them. General newsletters that an organization sends out to recipients for various non-sensitive reasons. Disclose regulatory findings that publicly traded organizations must file with various government organizations that end up becoming public record, such as the Security and Exchange Commission's Form 10-Q or quarterly financial report that a publicly traded company has to submit. Internal or secret classified information and assets will most likely be the most common type of information and asset that your organization's users will interact with on a daily basis. There are always exceptions to this statement, but most things in a modern organization are not highly restricted, such as confidential or top secret classification, or highly accessible, such as the public or unclassified classification. Examples of internal or secret classifications are internal policies that are published for your user population to consume, including the information and asset classification policy we've talked about already. This is because in most organizations you wouldn't want your internal policies to be accessible by the general public, but they're also not going to be effective if they're confidential or top secret, since no one will know what the contents are to comply with in these policies. Configuration standards for your technology assets are also examples of information that will most likely be internal or secret. Depending on the security requirements of your organization, they could also be examples of confidential or top secret classified information, but that would almost certainly not be public or unclassified. Source code would be similar to configuration standards, as some organizations might have highly restricted who can access their source code, while other organizations would have a wider internal user population maintaining access to it. Process documentation is similar to internal policies, in that you want internal users to be able to access this information to help them perform their roles' functions. Confidential or top secret classified information and assets are the most sensitive in nature and will most likely be restricted to only users with a business need to access them. Depending on the industry your organization is in, there can be very specific controls and processes that need to be in place to protect this level of information and assets. Examples of confidential or top secret classifications are client data that your organization has because of the business relationships you're in with clients. Take a financial institution, for example. Quite a bit of client information is captured for the two parties who do business with one another, a lot of it being highly sensitive data that can impact the client's life if someone used it maliciously to take out other financial products in their name, or something to that effect. This information, commonly referred to as personally identifiable information, or PII, is a highly regulated type of information that multiple industries must protect to prevent having judgments placed against them by their regulators. Salary and employee data is similar to client data in that a lot of information an organization has on its employees is highly sensitive. Health information has similar requirements to the other examples around protection of information and assets. Internal financial reports are sensitive in that they should not be used by non-authorized personnel until they are published, especially for publicly traded companies, as laws are in place to prevent unfair trading practices.